Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of In Defense of Fitness. In this, we're going to go over videos that are critical of CrossFit or oftentimes don't understand CrossFit or just straight up beat the crap out of it. And we're going to unpack what is correct about them and maybe some things that are incorrect about them or misunderstandings. This video is titled Why Everyone Hates CrossFit. It's relatively old. It's by a guy named Josh Brett. He's got quite a following, but I will put it on here and we will get after it. Here we go. Why everyone hates CrossFit. Let's figure it out. And before I do these, I don't actually watch the video. I just watch it with you guys so you can get my honest response to this. Let's go.
If you've heard of CrossFit, your first impression probably wasn't positive. Whether that's because of its floppy pull-ups.
Floppy pull-ups.
Zero.
So two things there. One, there are plenty of people who get positive responses on CrossFit. And it was actually more so these days than I think previously. There's more positive responses than there ever has been. I think in the initial days, it was like anyone who ever talked about it, it was only negative. But these days, more and more people understand that there is some amazing stuff to it. The pull-up here, this is Chris Spieler. It was an amazing test that he did years and years ago. He did 100 unbroken pull-ups, kipping pull-ups specifically, butterfly kipping pull-ups specifically. It was just a pretty amazing feat of capacity in pulling and body awareness in the mechanics associated with doing a good cyclical pull-up. That being said, are some of these slightly short, and is this the greatest strength building exercise in a kipping pull-up? No, but that's not what it's for. We don't need to unpack why we do kipping pull-ups unless they bring it up again, in which case we will.
Zero.
Its seemingly dangerous nature, or the fact the community is often referred to as a cult.
What if
Oftentimes in these videos, what they'll do is they'll try to find like the most extreme issues where people drop a bar on their head, or, you had a video or a photo there of Kelly Starrett coaching a bunch of people through a plank hold, which is really interesting. I'm not really sure. I guess it serves the purpose of helping people justify the statements they're going to make. But at the same time, it's like that's like cherry picking any information. Of course, you're going to find negative pieces to it, but let's keep watching this. A cult.
What if someone led a cult and they didn't know they were? That would be messed up, right?
There's three main reasons CrossFit became so hated, and how these came about is concerning.
Here we go, a bit of fitness here as he does some sort of fucking washing machine type of pull-up here.
This is a workout craze with no signs of slowing down.
It's a workout program that's unpredictable,
It's funny. These clips are interspersing like decent clips with non-decent clips. So basically, this is a guy messing around with a burpee wall ball. We actually did this years ago as just a challenge for fun. And this is more just adults playing. Same thing with those guys squatting and throwing the barbell to each other. I almost 100% doubt, almost 100% can guarantee you that wasn't programmed at the gym as like the thing to do. And by no means is this what CrossFit does. It was just centered around some dudes messing around. So, but then it's interspersed with like games clips and a guy doing some kipping bar muscle ups or kipping kipping bar dips, which he actually had decent range, and he just was, using his hips and legs to get through it. Then some weird voiceover with a person saying that's unpredictable, but it is not.
compromising, and raw.
But critics say CrossFit is dangerous and people are getting hurt.
Same thing. It's like you look at that one, this clip right here is at the CrossFit Games, and it's some of the top athletes going for 100 max deads. And was that good technique? No. But at the same time, this girl was totally safe afterwards when she did it. It was within range for the task at hand, which was just outlift your competitors. Now, the one before that, let's see if I can go backwards. This is I have no idea what this is.
CrossFit is dangerous.
Something that someone was doing in a competition, smashing a sledgehammer down into the tire. Sledgehammer work is not something you'll find at a ton of CrossFit gyms very often. In terms of moving the needle, it doesn't do very much. But is it fun to do occasionally? Is it fun to get some aggression out, smashing a tire? Sure. But is it that effective at doing much change? The answer is no. This video right here, actually, it looks like it's in a CrossFit gym, but this is a strongman move. So that's an axle bar clean. So you get it up to your waist there, then you squirt your way under it and stand it on up. Now that might have been done in a CrossFit class as like a fun thing for the day, but it looked more like a strongman thing.
People are getting hurt.
Despite going from zero to over $4 billion in 20 years, CrossFit is probably the most controversial fitness brand in the world.
Dangerous, maybe to the rest of the industry. I think we are a threat, but not to people's well-being.
So how did it become so popular, yet so hated?
Why does everyone hate CrossFit?
CrossFit was formed in the year 2000.
Hey, that's Santa Cruz. That's where I live. Yeah, that's a beach boardwalk. Actually, down there is where I play volleyball, right there. And then this is like a nice big boardwalk right to the right of this. This is an inn called the Dream Inn. That's pretty cool. Anywho, good.
2000 in Santa Cruz, California, by Greg Glassman. He believed that the traditional metrics of fitness and intensity kinda suck.
For the bodybuilders, intensity comes down to how red your face gets and how big of a scene you make and how much you grunt and I go, wow, that's intense.
But the endurance community's metric for intensity, heart rate, was just as bad.
So it wasn't that these were just as bad in terms of bad for you. They were more just less measurable. So bodybuilding, like he was saying, correlated intensity to like how loud someone could grunt or something along those lines. And no one ever said that. This is more of like a sarcastic comment that he would use in lectures. And then you had the issues he had with the metric of fitness is the same as the issue he has with the metric of intensity is it wasn't measurable. Now, when it came to something like heart rate was measurable, but it was also correlative to intensity, not directly in line with intensity. So you could have a high heart rate when you were scared. You could have a high heart rate when you're sick. You could have a high heart rate for many things other than you're improving your fitness. So when he goes to talk about these, hopefully maybe he closes this off with his measurement of intensity is power output, which is something that was very different to the fitness industry at the time. Same thing with fitness when we're talking about how we define fitness. Previously didn't have a definition that was empirically driven. It was the state of being fit. And then Greg came around and created a better definition that drew from empirical measurements.
His new methodology was to create the fittest people on earth, with constantly changing workouts to prepare people for the unexpected, in which the aim was to not only lift heavy weight for reps.
So we don't really lift heavy weight for reps. If we're defining heavy weight as hitting like 70% of a max or more, we do heavy weight for strength days, which would be in kind of classic strength reps and the sitting at like 3s and 5s and 1s and 2s. And but when it comes to like heavy weight for reps, it should be, we'll do moderate loads for reps and we will do light loads for reps. But very rarely are you finding people doing heavy weight for any sort of high volume. That's just the nature of programming, is the human body cannot do heavy weight for reps. It wouldn't be heavy in that case.
But to do it quickly.
Hey, we're really doing this shit.
So even in that video that he posted, that was a guy doing a sumo deadlift high pull at 75 pounds. And I believe that was one of the...
not only lift heavy weight for reps.
I think this is... What's his name? CrossFit 817. Is this Alex? I think this guy ends up being a games competitor. Anyway, that weight is very light relative to the individual. So this is a hip movement, sumo deadlift high pull, where your hips and legs do the work and your arms kind of follow through with it.
But to do it...
looks like an upright row, but it's mainly a hip drive.
But quickly.
Hey, we're really doing this shit so we can go outside and survive better.
The athletes would all train together in class.
That's James Hobart doing James Hobart.
As a tribe, everyone believed in.
It's weird. They chose a few visions of people doing sumo to the thigh pulls. That's actually not a very common movement that you'll see in gyms very often. It's something that we teach as a teaching tool and conditioning tool at the level 1, as a transitional teaching tool for somebody to go from not doing cleans in the Olympic lifts to kind of gatewaying themselves into doing cleans. It's essentially a power clean minus the receiving position, so the elbows don't have to come around. We have had hate on it in the past about the sumo to the thigh pull being something that we shouldn't teach, but I think it's just people looking for stuff to hate more than anything.
In CrossFit's vision, and they'd throw stones at traditional fitness.
You can sit there in Gold's Gym for hours, I've done it for years, and go days at a time without seeing functional movement except for the people coming in, sitting their bags down. And as soon as they start working out, I get this shit.
The brands were seen as a rebellious
So what's being referenced there is we would, or Greg and, people from within our community too, would basically compare what we did in our spaces to what was done in conventional gyms, especially in 2000, 2001. Those things were not functional, but they were never claiming to be functional for the most part. Bodybuilding has not talked about until you have someone like Marcus Philly come around. It's not been touted as a functional training program. It only recently has functionality been something that was really talked about as a thing. And even within that, the functional space has many different variations on what defines functional. In CrossFit, we have our own specific definition, but that's what we're referencing. So in the case of bodybuilding, they weren't training for function. They were training for form. They were training to look a certain way, which doesn't require you to do functional movements. Hence the reason Greg was saying you walk into a normal bodybuilding gym and people are doing these really unfunctional things. They're never going to help them in life. Not in the same way that doing functional movements would. Movements that are found in life, that are high power, that allow for change to happen in many different ways other than just muscle breakdown and regrowth. So that's what's being referenced there. And that is a comparison of a lack of functionality in conventional gyms. And this is different actually nowadays. There's a lot more functional movements we find in other gyms, but I would argue that CrossFit has a big influence on that, and that's why it's there.
Underdog in the fitness industry, and because it was seen as this new ultimate sport for fitness, CrossFit's growth was rapid. By 2005, CrossFit had expanded to 13 gyms. By 2016, it reached 13,000 gyms, and then by 2020, over 15,000 gyms.
So these numbers are very rough, and there's a number of things like going on with these that that you could argue. Like 2020, for instance, when it said 15,000 gyms, that was 15,000 people who had affiliated with CrossFit, but then a lot of those gyms weren't necessarily keeping up on their payments and things along those lines. So it's a cool number to look at, but that was kind of the top area. But there is conversation to be said around how many of those people were bought into what they were doing, let alone knew what they were doing. So it's cool to see its growth here, but it's definitely a number that we can, and a metric that we can be like, well, how real is this?
So what could possibly be to hate about a fitness brand growing like a
that was CrossFit Santa Cruz. Let me see if I.
So what could possibly be to hate about
I know the vast majority. Well, actually, I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of those people. 9 of those people. Awesome.
Fitness brand growing like a fast food chain, getting millions into fitness. Surely this is an amazing concept.
Reason 1, let's hear it.
CrossFit's specialty is being extremely unspecialized. In a workout, you might be doing this, or this. As the creator wanted to focus on functional fitness, with the aim of improving in all of these areas, CrossFit includes a large number of technical movements, which can require much more skill than other sports to learn, especially considering movements are done for reps, catalyzed by competitive...
Look at those old school suitcase deadlifts. Those are great, by the way, and they're so hard for balance and stuff, but I wouldn't say they're done.
Where speed's important. As a result, form breakdown is of high risk, which is partially why we see so many CrossFit fail videos.
So all of the things there are people really pushing the limits. And when you push your threshold, there is inevitably going to be potential failures. That being said, those were pretty catastrophic failures. I can say that I've taught thousands and thousands of people, and the number of people I've seen drop a bar on their head is like very, 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 very low. I've seen far more people trip and fall in the streets and, live rear ends and accidents in my life, just living, than those kinds of things in the settings that we're in. Now, is there always the potential for those? Absolutely. But there's a potential for that in any gym. Just type in gym fails video, and there's going to be plenty of people just failing by not sliding weights on the right way, or people getting pinned under benches, or people getting to the bottom of squats and moving like garbage. It is not unique to the CrossFit space. His argument here, though, is saying that as we increase the complexity of movements, there is a higher likelihood of potential for injury. And yes and no. When complexity increases, the inability to do the movement actually also increases. So as load increases and complexity increases, there is a higher likelihood of potential for injury, but oftentimes our mechanics will limit our ability to actually go to these places. Now, are there people who can push through it? Sure. But at the same time, it's not necessarily a one-to-one, and it doesn't make it inherently any more dangerous per se. Now, is there certain dangers associated with some of these higher level movements? Sure. And is there associations of danger with this and speed? Sure. Like as you're seeing here, this guy did a muscle up, big kipping one, and slipped through the rings. But at the same time, this wouldn't be something you just toss somebody into. This would be something that builds up over time. This is no more injurious than going out and doing something like running and not having run before. There's mechanics associated, and there's potential for risk and stepping in holes and doing all kinds of stuff. Similar to going and playing a sport, there's always going to be a certain level of danger associated with it. And CrossFit has no higher when it comes to just raw statistics than a lot of other training programs.
In fact, the creator's always been clear on the potentially dangerous nature of CrossFit, stating that it can actually kill you. This edgy nature initially seemed to...
So it can kill you, but not because of the movements. It can kill you because there's a potential to overdo it. There's something called rhabdomyolysis, and that's what it's referencing in there, is coming in and doing such intense muscle tissue breakdown, you can flood your kidneys with muscle tissue, die of kidney failure. Now, this is something that happens in crush victims. This is something that happens in anybody who does more than they should be able to. But the ability to go there is actually very, very... it's harder than you think, and most people have nowhere near the capacity to go there. The most susceptible people to this are people who are previous athletes who had capacity, had ability, and then come into something like CrossFit thinking they can do it and go way too hard because they don't know how to experience these movements in the way that they do them. Now, that's up to the coaches to mitigate that. It's also up to the individual. And then there are some movements that exacerbate this, like eccentrically loaded movements that also have progressive scales, something like a jumping pull-up or a GHD sit-up, or super, super high rep ranges, thinking things like Murph, which is like one of the highest rep ranges you'll see in all of CrossFit. But you do it like once a year. And now it's become like a global staple, is just like an event in and of itself. So that's what it's referencing. It's not referencing the movements per se being something unique that can come and kill you.
Seem to attract people to it, with one of their unofficial mascots being Pukey the Clown, a stereotype of how often people at CrossFit train to vomiting.
I've met Pukey multiple times. But then again, you're doing this for competition, so you kind of have to go there.
But perhaps more concerned.
That's Dave. I haven't seen Dave in a while. So Pukey the Clown and Uncle Rabdo are kind of the same general concept. It's basically just saying like, hey, be cautious of this. It exists. We're going to poke fun at it. We're going to make some grotesque over the top thing. Don't go there. We're not supposed to go and puke. Like I'd say 90% of people who've done CrossFit have never, ever thrown up. Maybe 90, 95. I have thrown up, but I've also been a top level competitor. The ability to push yourself so hard training that you can throw up is so unique. Very few people know how to go that hard. Now, should you go that hard? No. But should you know where that boundary is? For sure. And by no means are we celebrating that. But what we're doing is we're bringing awareness to it through humor and a ridiculous mascot.
concerning is their mascot Uncle Rabdo, a clown dying from rhabdomyolysis.
So Uncle
His
Rabdo
guts
and
are
Puke the
falling to
Clown
the
are
floor due
kinda
to a
the same
condition
thing.
which can be caused by training so hard that your muscles break down, entering the blood, which can then cause organ damage and death. A syndrome which turns urine a disturbing colour. CrossFit has been criticised for glorifying this condition, or at least not taking it seriously, with some gyms
So all of those t-shirts are not CrossFit. Those are people making them for fun.
bragging about it, and people posing in hospital with the condition, as if it's a badge of honour. In response, the CrossFit creator stated,
It's not a badge of honor, but it is something that to be aware of and to know. And what happens when you get rhabdomyolysis is, like you said, you can have Coca-Cola colored urine because you have, it's either myoglobin or hemoglobin in the blood, or in in your blood. It gets into your urine somehow, into your bloodstream. Yeah. Anyway, that's what colors it, that Coca-Cola color. In addition to that, there's what you get is these elevated levels of CPK in your blood. The CPK count goes up, and when you get tested, that's what you'll find is, so when people are in the hospital, they have these super high level CPK counts in their blood, and they'll have to get a transfusion in order to of water, not blood transfusion. They'll basically be hydrated so that they can flush this out of their system. It is something we should avoid. And there's a number of ways we can avoid it. I don't think people are celebrating it. People celebrate life. They're saying what happened. Anyway.
stated, we introduced Rhabdo because we're honest and believe that full disclosure of risk is the only ethical thing to do. Regardless, many dislike
Tell me
CrossFit.
that's not a great statement. We want to be honest, and you have to acknowledge risk that it exists. By no means is it something that happens all the time, but if you're not acknowledging the risk of it, then you're being dishonest, and it's silly.
For the prioritization of intensity over form.
Okay, that is fundamentally incorrect. There has never, ever been a prioritization of intensity over form. Form has always been the foundation and bedrock of what we're doing, and then we turn up intensity relative to the individual and ride that threshold between intensity and technique. That's essential for anything that requires both speed and precision, as well as also speed and precision. That's it. As speed as well as precision is what I was saying. Anyway, this I believe is Ogar.
A commonly mentioned fitness horror story is that of CrossFit athlete Kevin
There he
Ogar,
is.
who severed his spine during a fitness competition. And while it's used to scare people away from CrossFit, it's important to remember extreme injuries can happen in any sports. Not to mention, it was actually a weightlifting competition where the injury happened. If we look at the injury rate,
Okay. So he provided some positive context for that. Not fully correct. It wasn't a weightlifting competition. It was a CrossFit competition that had a weightlifting movement in it. And he ended up dropping that on his spine and severing his spine. He's now a level 1 trainer. He's a level 4 coach, I believe. He runs an amazing gym, and he's done amazing stuff with it. Still very much in the CrossFit scene. If you don't know who Kevin Ogar is, look him up. The guy's a freaking legend. But yeah, that was horrific. That was gnarly when it happened. I was working for seminar staff and the media department, and it came through, and that video came through, and it was just, we were devastated that had happened. But that was at a CrossFit competition, but it was the weightlifting section of a CrossFit competition.
rates, it would actually be unfair to call CrossFit much more dangerous than weightlifting or powerlifting. However, considering the weights used in CrossFit are usually lighter, with the movements done in supervised classes, it's still unnecessarily high. The data's likely positively skewed, meaning the CrossFit injury rate is massively inflated by bad gyms. And make no mistake, there are some awful CrossFit gyms out there. If you're over the
Oh, here we go. So it says Albany CrossFit Strongman, the worst weightlifting video in the history of weightlifting videos. That's a strange video. I actually haven't seen that video, but Albany CrossFit, I know the gentleman who started that, and I know people who work there now. But a strongman event, this is an axle bar clean, and it's got a very specific mechanic associated with it. In addition to that, this will be sub-max loads relative to real cleans as well as deadlifts. There is injury risk associated with this, but not really much higher than other things. So people know what they're getting into when they're doing a competition like this. It's sport specific. It's like going out and playing football for a weekend and being like, how could you? Injury?
Over the age of 18, you could open your very own CrossFit gym as a qualified instructor after just 2 days of training. So although CrossFit...
So, hey, look, I'm in the video. Check it out. That's me overhead squatting against Zach Forrest, I do believe. That is fantastic. Anyway, what was I going to say? So he had a little meme with the guy here and the qualified trainer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the idea is that you're after 2 days, you're not qualified like to be, great by any means, but you do know the basics and you can start. And that's the deal with like almost, not that's the deal. It's like the only way to get good at this stuff is to teach people it. A lot of the times people who come to these seminars, they don't go from not ever doing CrossFit to showing up at a seminar to opening up a gym. They'll do something where they'll come to, and they've been doing CrossFit, experiencing it, being coached in it for years and years on end, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They'll then get the bug in their bonnet that they want to go and pass the test and come and be a coach. And they'll go take the 2-day course after years of experience, learn what it is from the horse's mouth, as well as some coaching education and some practical education, like you're actually being coached and you're taught how to coach just a little bit. And then you get to go out and you get to try to coach. That's your ability to go open these gyms and do that stuff. Now, is it a perfect system? No, but there aren't perfect systems. Like when you look at a lot of these other training programs, many of these ANSI accreditation and all these other ones have zero practical, not even 2 days. They have literally zero practical. You're not made to go out and actually coach people to see if you're good at it. You're studying the theory on coaching, but theory doesn't mean anything. Well, I mean, it does mean stuff, but it doesn't mean that you will be good at delivering it to people. And even then, it's like, it's fascinating to me that this is a criticism of what we do. Now, could there be something stated around you should maybe have a level 2 before you open up a gym? Sure. That is a potential argument there. Or have X number of years of experience doing CrossFit under your belt as a prerequisite? Sure. But the theory back in the day when Greg was running the company is that like cream will rise to the top sort of deal. So bad gyms will close, good gyms will stay open. And we could have a whole other video talking about the pluses and minuses of all that, but we won't.
CrossFit done right is a very safe sport.
And then there's Chris.
Due to these factors, it can be unnecessarily dangerous.
Okay. Intensity risk plus sensational clowns. Anyone can be a coach. High skill movements for time. Yeah, sure. These are risk factors.
And unfortunately, it's the extreme fails and stupidity which tend to make sensational stories and go viral. But it's not just the concern for people's well-being that makes people hate CrossFit. It's often the fact CrossFitters don't seem to shut up about CrossFit. A common stereotype is that once you start CrossFit, it becomes your personality and pretty much all you care about.
CrossFit is a lifestyle. It starts in the gym and it ends on your Facebook.
It's not uncommon for the media.
CrossFit is very, it was more so back in the day, I guess. Initially, it was very counterculture. And then the people who first adopted it needed to be counterculture. That you were essentially going against the grain when it came to fitness. So there was a lot of pushing back on the fitness industry. Now, coupled with that, CrossFit is something that truly changes your life if you decide to dig into it. And people who commit to it will have, entire lives of never being able to stick to a training program, never feeling the way they want to feel or looking the way they want to look. And then all of a sudden, they will start doing CrossFit and have a complete life change. So inevitably, when you have something that does that much positive for you, you probably are going to talk about it. In addition to that, people will ask you about why you look the way you do now or why you act the way you do, and it comes up as a thing. So there's a lot of reasons why people don't talk about CrossFit or do talk about CrossFit. And I understand it can be annoying, and especially when people are new to it, they don't have quite have the words. All they know how to do is talk about how hard it is and the time they vomited or whatever it might be. So I get it. It is
the media to refer to it as a cult.
All hail the culture of CrossFit.
With many deeming it the Scientology of fitness. And from the outside, it may seem to have a lot of cultish attributes. For example, the stereotype of CrossFitters almost worshipping CrossFit.
But did you know that CrossFit is the only way to work out?
How they try and recruit.
There's by no means is CrossFit the only way to work out. There are many different successful ways to work out. CrossFit, however, is the best way to achieve fitness as per the definition that CrossFit puts forward, which is work capacity across broad time and modal domains. Work capacity being ability to output power across broad time, which is any time frame and any activity, which broken down one more time is to be able to do whatever you want for however long you want at whatever level that you want. So we believe that that is our metric that we're chasing, and we do CrossFit to get us there. Now, there are other programs that help you get fit, but we as CrossFitters believe that our program gets you the fittest, the quickest across the most number of people, which is why we do what we do. And the people who truly understand CrossFit, they don't badmouth other things. They just know where CrossFit sits in the ecosystem, and they do it because they believe it's the best thing for them. If we believe there was something better, we would do that other thing. So when it comes to the goal of fitness, that is what we believe. We do believe that there is not a better program for it. But I think when you're new to it, you kind of don't understand the nuance of that, and you just beat the shit out of other programs because you think, or you have this perception of it being great, but you don't quite know why, and you don't have the words to really articulate what makes it so great and what it's actually even trying to do. And I think a lot of people just misunderstand what it's trying to do for them. They have different goals. They think it's like X, Y, or Z, but yeah.
Recruit new members.
CrossFit's not just an exercise, it's a cult, way of life.
And all think the same way.
Damn it, I knew this felt cult-like.
While it's definitely the minority that's actually like this, a valid concern in this tribal group environment is...
So this is interesting. So if you watch those initial videos of this exact video here, he had some pretty decent mechanics. As he's breaking down here, he's starting to move really poorly. This would be a coach's responsibility, that guy standing there with the megaphone, to step in and be like, dude, set your back, lift your chest up. And this is where we kind of have the differentiator from like good gyms and less good gyms, is when the coach steps in and can stop an athlete, or can say, hey, find your positioning, and hold that as a standard as, intensity goes up or things start to break down. But this is interesting.
Is the likelihood of
there might be something I don't know in here in terms of maybe that was a competition. Maybe he'd already, I'm not really sure why a coach wouldn't change that, or would be standing there looking at it and not modifying it. Maybe that's not a coach. Maybe he's just a rep counter.
A phenomenon that occurs
when desire for group consciousness overrides people's common sense to present alternatives.
The desire for group consensus overrides people's common sense. This is particularly dangerous, considering some CrossFit gyms are run by massively underqualified people. It may explain why we see some gyms proudly displaying rhabdo boards, people selling merch like this, and why some CrossFitters can be so extreme, painting a bad picture for the rest of a sport.
Fish oil pills. I do CrossFit.
When you consider the likelihood of groupthink, and the fact CrossFit was created to be the superior sport, it's not surprising why people make fun of its elitist nature.
What's this shit? Anyone ever done that on a job site? Is it essential to raising children?
As if this is going to help you raise a child.
That is... Okay, so there's a few things there. Groupthink is where you all start thinking about what's around you. So everyone is in kind of the same boat, and we push forward and we don't question the things that are happening. And if you've got a whole bunch of people who you trust who are then put forward a hypothesis, you're less likely to challenge it. One of the other ways that you can think about this is something like a social threshold. Things like this happen when you have riots, right? So a riot will happen, and a bunch of people who normally wouldn't go out and break windows and do stuff will all of a sudden jump in and start doing these kinds of things because the people around them have lowered their social threshold to basically go and do this thing. And CrossFit does have that, where you basically have a bunch of people around you who are thinking similar things, and in that moment, you do things you previously wouldn't. Now, in the CrossFit gyms, those are oftentimes very good things, like stay consistent, do hard workouts, eat better foods, and pay attention to your health and try to push capacity. These are all great things that, because of the group nature of it, you tend to stick to. It's one of the reasons it's so sticky as a training program, is that a bunch of people around you are making good, hard, different decisions. Now, the statement of one potential idiot could, leads people to believe bad things is of course true. These leaders in CrossFit gyms have something called positional authority. They basically, because you're paying them for their service, you've immediately elevated them to a position of power. And in that position of power, they are going to influence you more deeply because you've paid them to do so. You've already put them there. Now, the reality is people aren't dumb. So if you have a true idiot who you're following, you're going to eventually see through the bullshit and then leave. And the idea is that these gyms will eventually fail. But is there the potential for people to preach incorrect things, like a celebration of rhabdo? Sure, of course there's that potential. But there's a potential in any group environment, any school, any church, any doctor's office, like whatever it is. Like, you can have these people who are in positions of power and they could be less, it's not even intelligent. They could be less scrupulous with their morals, and all of a sudden you're following a psychopath. So it's not unique to the CrossFit space, but I get what his statement is here. In general, though, these are all positive things that end up happening with the groupthink and people committing to things that are outside their own normal way of being. Now, this last little bit where he's comparing two very different things. One is Greg talking about functional movements and never doing this on a job site. He's saying you will never see that on a job site because it is a non-functional movement. It's made in order to grow part of your arm. Whereas, is this going to help you pick up your kids? And, you could make an argument that it would, because you'd have a slightly stronger part of your arm. But then he relates it to this, which is Chris Spieler doing a test of as many pull-ups as you can do. Now, specifically, I think what he's referencing is the fact that this is a butterfly pull-up or a kipping pull-up. And he's saying, how is this going to help you pick up your kids? Well, if we wanted to break that further back down, it would be, this is one part of a well-rounded fitness, is the ability to coordinate your body through space and have the ability neurologically to link something like this over and over again. And then to have the upper body strength to hold on each one of those reps and not tear your shoulder out of its socket is something that is showing you that you have the capacity to move your arm through space like that, link the things together, and then apply that to the rest of life. Like, I don't know, picking up your kid. So is this directly picking up your child? No. But is this the thing that is showing that you have all this capacity and one of the things you can train? Yeah, it is. And that's kind of what the reference is here. One is a non-functional movement, which is not found in life. This is, you could argue that you're not going to see butterfly pull-ups in life, but pull-ups are pulling up on top of something is very functional. It's also a much longer range of motion for the shoulder, so we're building the musculature in a very different way. So again, I think he's just looking for things to hate, not understanding it.
That is doing absolutely nothing to improve your balance. All you're doing is building really big chest muscles that won't help you at all the next time you have to fight off a grizzly bear.
While I personally think
JP is pretty funny. But yes, I think that is where people take it to the extremes, where they hate on something else 100% and say, like, don't do that. The argument should be, don't do that if your goals are to be more capable as a human. A bench actually doesn't fall into that category. Benches are functional. We do bench, and we tend to do more push-ups because it's more accessible, and it's oftentimes when you're pressing in that plane, it would be your body weight, but we would also overload it with a bench press. It's not something we wouldn't find. We just don't build our entire program around it the way a lot of other programs do. And oftentimes people aren't doing a bench in order to have stronger pressing power. They're doing it in order to have nicer boobies. And that is actually fundamentally a mentality that we try to steer people away from, hence the doing things that help you with life.
CrossFit's community aspect is its biggest benefit, and having a strong community doesn't make it an evil sect. It's not surprising why CrossFitters get stereotyped for belonging to an annoying elitist cult. By far the most common criticism of CrossFit is the fact it looks stupid. I think
I don't know if that's our biggest criticism, but it's a fun one.
Most would agree some of these movements are.
So oftentimes you're going to see things that look stupid Because they're competitor things or competitive things where people are pushing the margins of something here. So there's a 4-person deadlift, which I agree is pretty silly.
Definitely questionable.
Again, this was the clip he showed before. It's not.
Instead of doing things with strict form, CrossFitters have found ways to cheat, to get through workouts quicker. For example, the CrossFit rules for a pull-up only state you must get your chin over the bar. So people started kipping.
So that's a misunderstanding. The CrossFit's rules are not that. The CrossFit standard for range of motion is lock out of the arm, chin goes over, lock out of the arm, and how you get between those points is dependent upon the situation. So if you're competing in it, you'd want to do it in the fastest amount of time. So you would probably do something like a butterfly pull-up. If you were training in it, you have a bunch of different ways to do it. You can do butterfly pull-ups if you're working that mechanic and that technique and you're looking to maintain higher levels of intensity. You can do gymnastic style kip, frog style kip, but there's also strict pull-ups and weighted pull-ups, and we do all of those. If you're looking for just raw strength, we're going to often be doing just strict pull-ups, but then adding in there some more dynamic nature of it with the kipping pull-ups. That will show that you can handle a higher load through the shoulder. In addition to that, it keeps intensity high because you don't fail muscularly quite the same way. So you'll still be getting some of that pulling capacity, but you'll also be getting the neurological component of sinking your body through a complicated movement like a kip. And you'll also be getting some cardiorespiratory stimulus, which will be from the nature of the training of you're keeping your heart rate high, and it allows you to keep cycling other movements that you do. So that's why we do it. It's very misunderstood in the larger space.
Many experts claim these are unnecessarily technical and dangerous and shouldn't be called pull-ups considering it's more of a swing. A similar thing is seen in powerlifting, where people arch their backs to create an almost non-existent range of motion. But because kipping is so humorous to watch, CrossFitters are frequently made fun of.
Bang! And he's
So that wasn't the kipping that was fun to watch. That was him falling off the bar, which is a bummer.
basically dead as the woman jumps in a different direction.
CrossFit has revolutionized fitness by teaching the correct way to do an incorrect pull-up.
While good gyms focus on the basics and sensible programming, unfortunately, others get a little too creative with their movements, all in the name of functional training.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their...
So that video is old as heck, and some of the very old CrossFit video, or some of the very first year, they did this virtual shoveling, and they did it like one time, and it was inevitably. I mean, it was funny and hard, but you and it was difficult, but it's not particularly valuable. It's not moving the needle. Hence the reason you didn't see it very much after that. These are just people doing some silly stuff.
Now, whenever someone does something which looks dumb in the gym, it tends to get labelled as CrossFit, only strengthening the stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, he's making a good point. There's a lot of stuff that gets thrown our way that's not actually CrossFit. A lot of the videos that'll be like CrossFit fails, you'll find are like this. This is a axle bar clean. Strong.
But you see, a lot of the dislike does come from misunderstanding. While many do CrossFit to become better all-round athletes, others do it simply to get better at CrossFit and not to gain muscle optimally. In good CrossFit gyms, workouts include mostly basic movements, with most of the odd-looking exercises only being done by the advanced, often as trained.
See, look at this. He's having not a change of heart, but he's letting us know that he actually kind of understands.
Training to compete in the CrossFit Games, which is its own sport.
Hey, I know
in fact, to become the first ever Australian Ninja Warrior, Ben Paulson trained with butterfly pull-ups, and I think you can see how they may have been useful here, allowing him to take the trophy, along with the $400,000 cash prize.
I thank CrossFit a lot.
So even something as ridiculous and universally hated as the CrossFit pull-ups can have a use. There's nuances to everything. Still, the criticisms around the dangers of CrossFit are valid. CrossFitters can be impressively annoying, and it can look odd. Although CrossFit kind of asked to get bullied, it was a great idea, just with terrible execution. The brand became hated due to its dangerous perception and elitist stance, all the while incorporating unusual movements, with many gyms completely forgetting what functional training actually is. And you can't really blame them.
I actually don't think that this statement is true. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that he's saying that's quite positive, but I don't think a lot of gyms has forgot what functional training actually is. And the vast majority of CrossFit gyms do very simple training. And it's completely revolutionized fitness as a whole when it comes to what we consider to be training. There's more and more copies of it. There's more and more versions of people doing higher intensity movements and even increasing the complexity of what they do. Oftentimes nowadays, there's a lot of bickering from within CrossFit about what exactly is the better CrossFit programs, but there doesn't need to be, because the only thing that we're looking for is the outcome of fitness. So when you look at the empirically driven definition of fitness, whatever gives us that in the quickest, most efficient way across the most number of people with the most sustainability, we're going to be calling CrossFit. Now, if you understand CrossFit, that's constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity, which is our statements that we say at the level ones and all the other stuff. It sounds like at the end here, he's recognizing the values of it, but he also goes in to say that it was executed really poorly. I think it couldn't have been executed better. The people who understand it. The people who don't continue to not. And, you know, regardless of what you believe, it is where it is now. It's just, I don't know. It's our opportunity as people who do understand it to continue to go out and help people live the highest quality lives they can. And we don't need to beat someone into it. And you can never force someone to do it, but you can continue to speak level-headed on it and create a space that people want to be, and then make them truly change their
Blame them,
lives.
considering a 2-day course is all they needed to open. Unfortunately, each of these points are enhanced by stereotypes. Whether or not CrossFit is bad largely depends on the gym you go to. CrossFit with a good coach is probably just what some, who may find the gym boring, need. In a world where most people are sedentary, with companies selling 2,600 calorie drinks, any physical activity done safely should be respected. And the best workout is the one you actually do long term.
So that statement is true. The best workout is the one you do long term. And what he was saying there is true when it comes to, it's great that this might be what some people need, but what he's missing is the genuine nature of the impact of the effect of the workout. So anything is better than nothing, but some things are better than other things. And I think that that's what people who don't understand CrossFit miss, is they miss why we do what we do. And the only reason is because of the impact that it has, the adaptation that you will get from it. Anyway, be interesting to have a chat with this guy now, see what his whole thoughts are on it, because I think this video is pretty old, 3 years old. Anyway, that's another episode, long one this time, in defense of fitness. Go out there and stay virtuous, y'all.